Hello, everybody. So, WACRENIER from the Natural History Museum and Florent GILARD from Saola Studio. I'm going to give a very quick presentation of our project, REVIVRE, which opened in June 2021 in the large gallery of evolution at the Museum of Natural History in Paris. REVIVRE is an installation which brings extinct animals back to life. As such. So, as Florent said, this is the Grand Gallery of Evolution at our museum in the Jardin des Plantes in Paris. It presents different living species, evolution, and in the gallery here of 9,000 square meters, we have a room of endangered and extinct species, which presents 350 stuffed specimens, species which have totally disappeared today or which are endangered. So it's an extraordinary collection. These are the last examples of some of these species. And for us, it was important today, given the current situation with the sixth great extinction, it was important that we should manage to develop this room and bring visitors here. And we saw that not many visitors were coming to see the room. Perhaps it was because of the layout of the gallery. And it was important for us to attract visitors' attention to the room and to this subject to show the visitors this exceptional collection. And when we were wondering about how to get the visitors to come to the room, my colleague here visited the room and said what would be great would be to bring these animals out of the display cases and to make them live again. And that brought the idea of augmented reality. The idea Jim had, who created the studio with me, was to bring the collections back to life again through augmented reality. So here we see the difference between virtual reality, where we are in a new world, and augmented reality, or mixed reality, which is superimposed on the real world. And what I think is interesting here is that where you have collections, here, this is a jewel, this collection with interesting specimens, and we can really show them in the best light. So, on this project, the added value is multiple. We're in a room which is a historic monument, so we couldn't do just anything. Even the display cases are objects which cannot be modified. We can't change the room. And so the idea was to see how to provide the interaction without changing the room. And this made augmented reality an interesting solution. We didn't touch the scenography or the design of the room at all. Everything is done through the lens glasses. And as Florent said, it also enables us with augmented reality to really focus on the collections and promote the specimens through the content and to give really an approach to these collections rather than having them hidden in their case. And also, what was also interesting was to attract a new audience that we don't often see in outside with these new technologies, which our young visitors are keen on. So really, it wasn't a gratuitous idea. It really did seem meaningful to use augmented reality in this room. The system which was chosen is a synchronized experience. It was important that groups who come together should be able to enjoy this. It can be individual, but the idea for us was that if we see the same things, that everybody sees the same animal appearing at the same time, it really makes it more realistic. If there's a dodo approaching one person and that person steps back, the others will see that and they are part of the reality. So this is for groups of 6 or 7 people who spend 13 minutes following a scenario, walking around the Leon to see in particular aspects. And we have about 300 visitors a day for a total of 100,000 so far since 2021, over 100,000 people. I'll show you just a very short extract here. Watch here. So if the so there extraordinary, and you can see certain animals which are also on show in the display cases, and it's quite impressive for visitors. And all the scenes you saw are taken from this room. And now to talk about the way in which we put the project together, it's a co-production, and everybody contributed expertise. We provided our scientific expertise. We had a scientific curator who worked on the project with, of the scenario from Saola. We chose the species, the way in which the species was shown, to make sure that everything is scientifically valid. There is a voice over talking about the species, their life, how they disappear. So all of that was announced scientifically by us. And also all our archives, so we should know that these species have disappeared. We have very few traces of these species. We have some archives in the museum, which we used for the voice over of my activity. And obviously, the Natural History Museum is a big institution, so we were able to do a lot of communication about this. And we have also worked on working with operations staff to train them to receive the visitors with this source of experience. And you if you'd like to say what you contributed, the idea was that each of the parties in the project should be able to provide their strengths. So all the scientific part was done by Marie and her teams, and at Saola Studio we tried to work with the scientists, so we had a naturalist also. Then we modeled basic and 3D models, integrated them into the place, into the headsets, and and it also really we were able to produce a turnkey project in the museum in the same way. Now there is an additional ticket. There's a specific ticket that includes entrance to the Grand Gallery and the REVIVRE project, and the income is shared. Regarding the co-production of the project, this took about 1 year working together. 6 months of writing, 6 months of development. and integration.
Voilà, de cette
And so it was a relatively quick process. We were working on this during the lockdown, and so we were really very happy to be able to offer this program.
Et quelque chose qui est important, c'est qu'on a la chance.
And also what is important is here that we're part of the permanent tour of the museum. The idea wasn't to create something temporary, but that it should be part of the collection itself. And so the project is still open over the longer term.
Oui, Pierre,
And
a précisé
I
un
think to point out, but
de parcours
that tour
dont le parcours permanent.
is part of our permanent tour of the gallery.
Dont la thématique, c'est Home Factor Deviation. Et dans le fait, on parle de la relation.
And here talking about the relationship between humanity and the natural species. So it's a part of the permanent tour.
Permanente.
It's a permanent feature which can be updated, renewed with time.
Donc, on est ouvert.
And so we have opened, and we were delighted to see it also that we have a wide range of families who come to take part in this, also people who like technologies. And so we've worked also with the press, specialized press for young people. And so it was a very successful launch.
Je vais juste parler.
And I'm just going to talk very quickly about what we have also done. We have received, since we opened, we've received visits from a lot of institutions and museums. And through this project, we have also won some awards, which are an encouragement. From the Ministry of Culture, or prizes also.
Il y a un des sur les promesses de réalité.
From different festivals specialized in augmented reality. So we have received a lot of visits from colleagues who are interested in seeing the project, which is a very innovative project.
Donc on a eu
So colleagues from museums all over the world who have come see us from New York, from London, and from the region of France, colleagues from other institutions in Paris also who have come to see us. So really, this has really reached a very broad region. And that continues. We continue to receive these visits from institutions. And in addition to this, what we also are interested in is the perception of these new technologies among the public. We did a survey this summer in July and August, and questionnaires on site and also by email. And we got the results recently, and we're rather happy because we realized that this has been given a very warm reception by visitors. And what is quite striking is that there are a lot of visitors. 15% of visitors have come twice, and that is something quite exceptional for us with this sort of activity, to have visitors who come back and come back with other people to show them the activity. So we have a satisfaction rating, which is also rather high, 8.2 out of 10. And we realize that visitors, in fact, find that the result really lives up to their expectations. It's a very good thing. And visitors tell us it really is a moving experience. They feel close to these animals, and this is really something which makes them think about the question of how to protect living species. So I think our challenge has been a success. Very quickly, I'll talk about the prospects, future prospects for the project. Today, whether at Museo Saola
au sein de Nautical, l'aquarium de.
We've also worked with Nausicaa, the aquarium in Pierre-Sur-Nord.
Et en fait, on a vu au sein un décor incroyable.
Here we have managed to
Donc, on a fait une histoire de réalité
do an augmented reality experiment showing the zoo.
mélangé avec le grand maçon, et c'est vraiment le blog de Saola de Cinéa.
Our idea is to continue creating this sort of experience. And just to come back to the project at the Natural History Museum, we think that perhaps we could have a traveling version of this, which could travel around the world, and we could perhaps imagine other projects for other galleries at the museum.
L'écriture et de travailler avec les musées.
And this has been a really interesting experience creating this with the museums and placing technology at the service of museums. So thank you very much.
Beaucoup.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah,
And then I will also have some questions to ask you.
bonjour.
Hello. I have 2 or 3 questions. The first is I understand that there's an additional charge for this activity, if I understood correctly.
That is in.
The second is what age does this work? So is there a minimum age for this? And the third is whether Saola is specialized only in natural history museums, or whether for art museums or other types of museum, you could also do this sort of thing. I'll answer the first 2 questions, then hand over to you. So for the pricing, yeah, the model we chose for the Grand Gallery of Evolution, the permanent tour, there's the permanent tour, and then we have a number of add-on experiences of virtual reality or the REVIVRE experiment. So there's a ticket price for the permanent tour without the experiences, which is 10 euros. And then if you want one of these additional experiences, you pay an extra 3 euros. So 13 euros rather than 10 for the standard tour of the gallery. And regarding age, the key issue with age is the size of the goggles, the headsets, which aren't really adapted to the small heads of children and to their eyes. So for the augmented reality itself, there's not really a problem for younger people. It really is the risk of the headsets rolling off when they move their heads around. The visitor should be able to move around quite naturally, which would not be the case. So we have limited this to minimum age of 8 years. And also for the content that we propose, for the accessibility of the content, it's more for older children. And for the last question, no, we're not specialized in one area. We've worked on documentaries, and we can really do it now. Work remotely with all sorts of cultural institutions. I think there are things could be done in fine arts, applied arts, and in other types of museums. There are always interesting things that can be done. Obviously, this will never replace a person telling a story, but we can add something when it won't work. Sometimes in a painting, you can see the layers of the work. You can see the things with X-rays, use augmented reality. So see the paintings in a different way. So there are always ways of doing this, not just with animals. Although obviously animals are very interesting in 3D. And these talks about how long the experience lasts, that's 15 minutes. I was correcting. So in fact, what we have observed, the staff visits augmented reality, where visitors discover 10 species which have disappeared. Out of the 250 species in the room, the visitors want to continue visiting the room. And so they put the headsets down, the goggles down, and they continue to visit the rest of the room, or to go and see the species that they did see in the experience. So this was important also for us, that we shouldn't be limited to 10 species, but the people should want to know more. And we do really see that that is the case. And what's interesting is that we don't when they finish the experience, they hand the headsets back at the exit from the room, but often they do come back into the room to discover the room again. And the cost. How much did this cost? The production? The way I would say everything included with I would have said between 600,000 and 700,000, including the hardware. And as it's a co-production, so both sides made a contribution. And we also had a sponsor, a patron, who contributed to financing the project, Paribas. So we often do have patrons who are interested in this sort of new technological project. And I'm talking about the total cost, but in fact, it's covered by admissions. We provided the base 100,000 euros for the project because we produce and we have a contract which then enables us to get money from the admissions. So in fact, it's the visitors over time who will finance the visit. It's not the museum. So we share the revenues between the studio and the museum. And that's the production cost. And then obviously for the operating cost, you do need to have the human resources. We have 3 moderators who are present to receive the visitors and to explain how things work, to give them the hardware, and also to look after the equipment. And that's also the museum which provides that, which has recruited these moderators. It was already good. And today, after a year and a half, we see that it's a virtuous model because we do provide genuine added value. The museum is offering something new, being the support of a patron, and operating costs are covered by the revenues. And we have also covered our investments. So after a year and a half, you see that this sort of co-production project does work. Project does work. There was money invested at the beginning, which is then financed and bringing people to the museum who might not have come otherwise. And so it is an interesting model. And we had a record number of visitors this year in the Grand Gallery. I don't know if that's just because of REVIVRE, but the important thing is to have this new type of product in our permanent tour, which can bring in new visitors and get people to come back again, which is always very interesting. Well, thank you, Florent and Marie, for that presentation and for that really interesting project, which is really of great interest for the visitors who can get there, enjoy that experience in the gallery. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next duo.